I am a witch. A real, house-haunting, broom-riding, cauldron-stirring witch.
Elizabeth Montgomery seemed to have it all: beauty, talent, and a role that made her a household name.
So either open up or slip my clothes under the door.
But behind the camera, her life was a whirlwind of scandal, broken marriages, and fierce ambition that defied the era's norms. What secrets did she carry? Why did she rebel against Hollywood's rules? And how did her fame become a double-edged sword? Prepare to meet the real Elizabeth, beyond the bewitching smile. Elizabeth Montgomery's father, Robert Montgomery, was a Hollywood legend, a titan of the silver screen. Her mother, Elizabeth Allen, was a celebrated Broadway actress. Young Elizabeth, it seemed, was destined for greatness. She grew up in the lap of luxury, attending the finest schools: Westlake School for Girls in Holmby Hills, and the prestigious Spence School in New York City. She even honed her acting skills at the renowned American Academy of Dramatic Arts in Manhattan. But behind the glittering facade of her upbringing, a conflict was brewing. Her father, a man of traditional values, believed a woman's place was in the home, not on the stage or screen, even though the woman he married is also in the business. He discouraged her theatrical ambitions, even forbidding her from watching movies, a strange restriction for a child growing up in the heart of Hollywood. This clash of wills would shape Elizabeth's entire life, fueling her rebellious spirit and her determination to defy expectations. But of course, Robert, being a father, didn't want her to start right off from ashes in the industry. Seeing her passion, he thought of giving her a shot and offered her a role in his own show, Robert Montgomery Presents. This marks the start of her career in television. It was a small step, but a significant one. Elizabeth had stepped onto the battlefield armed with her talent and an unwavering resolve. She dove headfirst into the world of acting, landing roles in live television dramas and series like Studio One, Kraft Television Theatre, and even Alfred Hitchcock Presents. But Elizabeth wasn't just a pretty face with a famous last name. She craved more than just supporting roles. She wanted to prove her talent, to silence those who saw her as just Robert Montgomery's daughter. And prove it she did. At 21, she landed her first starring role on Broadway in Late Love, a performance that earned her critical acclaim and a Theatre World Award. This was her breakthrough, her declaration of independence. She finally had conquered Broadway, but Hollywood was a different beast. To truly escape her father's shadow and establish herself as a leading lady, she needed to conquer the silver screen. But breaking into Hollywood was no easy feat, especially for a young woman in the 1950s, at a time when the industry was dominated by men and traditional gender roles. At 22, Elizabeth found herself at a crossroads. She was a rising star, but also a young woman navigating a world that often sought to confine women to domestic roles. It was then that she met New York socialite Frederick Gallatin Cameron. He was older, sophisticated, and represented the kind of suitable match her father might have approved of. They married in 1954, the same year Elizabeth landed her first Hollywood film role in Otto Preminger's The Court-Martial of Billy Mitchell. This was her chance to shine, to prove her talent on the big screen.
Now, Billy, you drink this and relax a while. You can't possibly sleep the way you are.
However, her new husband had different plans. He wanted a traditional wife, one who would put her career aside and focus on family life. This clash of expectations created tension in their already fragile relationship. On the set of The Court-Martial of Billy Mitchell, Elizabeth found herself drawn to the film's leading man, the charismatic and much older Gary Cooper. Their on-set chemistry ignited into a passionate affair, a scandalous romance that quickly became the talk of Hollywood.
In its offices.
Yes, I know.
A stagehand even caught the pair in Cooper's dressing room, fueling the flames of gossip. This affair marked Elizabeth's first act of rebellion against the societal norms that sought to define her. Her marriage to Frederick crumbled under the weight of infidelity and conflicting ambitions, ending in divorce less than a year later. The divorce marked a turning point for Elizabeth. She refused to be confined by the expectations of others, whether it was her husband or her father. She was determined to live life on her own terms, embracing her passion for acting and pursuing love and happiness wherever she found it. But this newfound freedom came at a price. Unfortunately, her whirlwind romance with Gary Cooper fizzled out as quickly as it began, leaving Elizabeth with a broken heart and a reputation for being a homewrecker. But this was just the beginning of her tumultuous journey through love and Hollywood. Still reeling from her divorce and the end of her affair, Elizabeth found herself drawn to another older man, the acclaimed actor Gig Young. He was 25 years her senior, a charismatic figure who had already won an Oscar for his performance in They Shoot Horses, Don't They? But beneath the charm lurked a troubled soul, battling alcoholism and prone to violent outbursts. Despite the red flags, Elizabeth fell hard for Young. They married in 1956, a union that shocked and dismayed her father. He saw the relationship as a disaster waiting to happen, a repetition of Elizabeth's pattern of seeking love and approval from older, emotionally unavailable men. But Elizabeth, ever the rebel, ignored her father's warnings. She was determined to make this marriage work, convinced she could help Young overcome his demons. Their relationship was a roller coaster of passion and pain. Young's alcoholism and volatile temper created a toxic environment for Elizabeth.
I can drink any amount at all, and it doesn't bother me a bit.
She endured emotional and, some believe, physical abuse. Yet she stayed by his side for 7 long years, hoping to fix him, to find the love and stability she craved. But it was a losing battle, ending in a bitter divorce in 1963. Tragically, just a few years later, Young would make headlines again when he murdered his second wife, and then took his own life. Looking back, I don't know why I stayed with him, Elizabeth would later reflect. Maybe I thought I could fix him. Maybe I was just too young to know better. The divorce from Gig Young left Elizabeth emotionally scarred, but even more determined to find her own path. She threw herself into her work, taking on a variety of roles on television and Broadway. She even landed a role in the film Johnny Cool in 1963, directed by a man who would soon become a significant figure in her life, William Asher. This film marked the beginning of a new chapter for Elizabeth, one that would bring her both professional success and personal turmoil. It would also lead her to the role that would define her career and make her a household name. Working with William Asher on Johnny Cool was a turning point for Elizabeth. William, a successful television director, was instantly captivated by her talent and beauty. Their connection was undeniable, both personally and professionally. But their relationship was complicated from the start. William was still married, and Elizabeth was wary of repeating her past mistakes with older, troubled men. Despite her reservations, Elizabeth couldn't deny the spark between them. Asher was different from the men she had been with before. He was supportive of her career, encouraging her ambitions rather than trying to stifle them. He saw her potential, her strength, and her vulnerability. And Elizabeth, in turn, saw a stability and kindness in Asher that she had longed for. Their on-set connection quickly blossomed into a full-blown romance. Asher divorced his wife, and he and Elizabeth married in 1963. This was a bold move for both of them, a defiance of Hollywood norms and a testament to their belief in their connection. Together, they formed a creative partnership that would soon change the landscape of television. Their collaboration on Johnny Cool was just the beginning. Fueled by their creative synergy and personal bond, Asher and Elizabeth began developing a new project, a sitcom about a witch named Samantha who marries a mortal man. Asher saw something special in Elizabeth, a unique blend of charm, comedic timing, and an underlying strength that resonated with audiences. He believed in her talent, even when she doubted herself. After years of proving herself, of battling her father's disapproval, and the industry's sexism, Elizabeth was exhausted. She considered leaving acting altogether, yearning for a simpler life. Asher, however, recognized her immense talent and refused to let her quit. He persisted, urging her to reconsider, to give this one more role a chance. He saw the potential for Bewitched to be groundbreaking, a show that could challenge societal norms and showcase Elizabeth's versatility as an actress. Elizabeth, despite her initial reluctance, agreed to take on the role of Samantha Stevens in Bewitched. It was a decision that would change her life forever. The show premiered in 1964 and became an instant sensation. Audiences fell in love with Samantha, the charming witch who juggled her magical powers with the everyday challenges of suburban life. Bewitched was a ratings juggernaut, solidifying Elizabeth Montgomery's status as a television icon.
I have really enjoyed doing, and the fact that this is its 4th year is even more fun than it was last year, the year before, or the year before that. I haven't gotten the least bit bored with it.
But things weren't always as charming behind the scenes. In fact, by the time the show reached its 5th season, Elizabeth was ready to call it quits. ABC wasn't about to let go of their star cash cow, though. The network reportedly offered her an outrageous sum of money to stay, and she reluctantly agreed to film 3 more seasons. But by then, she was over it, and she made sure everyone knew it. That's when she began to rebel.
I only did it to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life.
And no, it wasn't just some behind-the-scenes grumbling. Elizabeth made a bold statement on camera. In the 8th season of Bewitched, she famously stopped wearing a bra during filming. Some said it was her subtle protest against being stuck in the same role for so long. Others saw it as her nod to the rising feminist movement. Elizabeth had transformed from the bubbly, nose-twitching witch.
If I'm tired, if I've had 1 glass of wine, or if I'm inclined to get the giggles, there is no way to do it. Now, you can figure out which one is my excuse now.
Into a woman who was ready to leave Samantha Stevens behind. But that all was because her personal life was crumbling down because of the show. In 1965, Elizabeth became pregnant with their first child. Rather than hiding her pregnancy, the writers incorporated it into the storyline, with Samantha and Darren welcoming their own baby, Tabitha.
Would you like to hold your daughter?
Well, luckily, when I found out that I was pregnant with our second little boy, well, I didn't know it was our second little boy when I was pregnant, but they wanted Samantha to have a baby on the show.
This mirroring of real life and fiction continued with each of Elizabeth's pregnancies, further solidifying the connection between the actress and her beloved character. For a while, it seemed like the perfect blend of personal and professional happiness. However, the pressures of fame and the demands of a hit television show began to take a toll on their relationship. The long hours, the constant scrutiny, and the temptations of Hollywood created cracks in their marriage. Asher, known for his charm and charisma, was also known for his wandering eye. He began having affairs, leaving Elizabeth feeling betrayed and isolated. By the late 1960s, their marriage was on shaky ground. Elizabeth, feeling increasingly unhappy and unfulfilled, began an affair of her own with Bewitched director Richard Michaels. This affair was a turning point for Elizabeth. It was a rebellion against the constraints of her marriage and a declaration of her independence. But it also created a complex web of personal and professional conflicts. Richard Michaels, a rising star in Hollywood, was drawn to Elizabeth's beauty, talent, and rebellious spirit. Their affair was passionate and intense, a stark contrast to the fading spark in her marriage to Asher. But this romance couldn't remain secret forever. The tension on the set of Bewitched became palpable, affecting everyone involved. The truth eventually came out, shattering both Elizabeth's marriage and her professional partnership with Asher. Their divorce in 1972 marked the end of an era, both personally and for Bewitched. The show, which had been renewed for a 9th season, was abruptly cancelled. The magic that had captivated audiences for 8 years was gone, replaced by the harsh realities of a broken marriage and a fractured creative team. The end of Bewitched and her marriage to Asher left Elizabeth at a crossroads. She was free from the constraints that had defined her life for the past decade, but also faced the challenge of redefining herself, both personally and professionally. Determined to shed the image of Samantha Stevens, Elizabeth actively sought out roles that were dramatically different from the bubbly, lovable witch she had portrayed for so long. She wanted to prove her versatility as an actress, to show the world that she was more than just a nose-twitching sitcom star. In 1974, she took on the challenging role of a rape victim in the television movie A Case of Rape. This was a bold move for Elizabeth, a departure from the light-hearted roles she was known for. She wanted to tackle serious issues and use her platform to shed light on important social topics. Her performance in A Case of Rape was a revelation. Critics and audiences alike were stunned by her raw and powerful portrayal of a woman struggling to cope with the trauma of sexual assault. The film was a critical success, earning Elizabeth an Emmy nomination and proving that she was a dramatic actress of considerable depth. She followed this up with another challenging role, portraying the infamous axe murderer Lizzie Borden in the 1975 television movie The Legend of Lizzie Borden. This performance further solidified her ability to transform herself and tackle complex characters. And the most unbelievable thing that not many know is that genealogical research revealed a shocking connection between the actress and the character she portrayed. Elizabeth Montgomery and Lizzie Borden were distant cousins, adding an eerie layer of fate to her performance. This revelation only deepened the intrigue surrounding Elizabeth's life and career, a life that seemed to be a constant interplay between fact and fiction. Despite her success in shedding the image of Samantha Stevens, Elizabeth's personal life continued to be a source of turmoil. She was still searching for love and stability, a search that often led her to troubled and emotionally unavailable men. In the late 1970s, she began a passionate but tumultuous relationship with actor Alexander Godunov, a former ballet star known for his roles in films like Witness and Die Hard. Godunov, like some of the men in Elizabeth's past, was battling personal demons. He was an alcoholic, prone to mood swings and abusive behavior. Their relationship was a whirlwind of intense emotions, marked by both passionate highs and devastating lows. Elizabeth, perhaps hoping to rescue him as she had tried to do with Gig Young, stayed with him for several years, enduring the emotional and, some believe, physical abuse. The relationship with Godunov eventually ended, leaving Elizabeth heartbroken and disillusioned. She had once again found herself drawn to a man who was unable to give her the love and stability she craved. But even as she navigated the challenges of her personal life, Elizabeth continued to pursue her passion for acting, taking on roles that challenged her and pushed her boundaries. While Elizabeth continued to take on diverse acting roles, she also became increasingly involved in social activism. This was a side of her that many didn't know, a reflection of her deep-seated beliefs and her rebellious spirit. Elizabeth was a strong advocate for women's rights, gay rights, and AIDS awareness, often speaking out on these issues long before it was popular to do so. She marched in protests, lent her voice to political campaigns, and supported organizations dedicated to social justice. Her activism was not just a passing fad, it was a reflection of her core values and her desire to create a more just and equitable world. One of her most notable acts of activism was her involvement in the fight against AIDS. During the 1980s, when the epidemic was at its height and fear and misinformation were rampant, Elizabeth bravely lent her support to AIDS research and advocacy. She even served as a Grand Marshal at the Los Angeles Gay Pride Parade in 1992, alongside her Bewitched co-star Dick Sargent, who had publicly come out as gay.
My buddy. Your buddy. Yeah. And for everybody else that's here, and hope that everybody watching is going to have as good a time as we are.
This was a bold move for a public figure at a time when homophobia was still prevalent. Elizabeth's activism was a testament to her courage and her commitment to social justice. She used her platform to speak out against injustice and inequality, even when it was unpopular or controversial to do so. As Elizabeth entered her 50s, she seemed to find a sense of peace and stability that had eluded her for so long. After years of tumultuous relationships with older, often troubled men, Elizabeth found love in an unexpected place, with actor Robert Foxworth, a man nearly a decade younger than her. This relationship marked a departure from her past patterns, a sign of her personal growth and evolving priorities. Elizabeth and Robert's connection was built on mutual respect, shared passions, and a deep understanding of the challenges and rewards of a life in the spotlight. They were both established actors, both committed to social causes, and both seeking a genuine partnership. Their relationship was a quiet contrast to the drama and chaos that had characterized Elizabeth's earlier romances. They began living together in the early 1980s, a testament to their commitment and compatibility. After nearly 2 decades together, they finally married in 1993, a quiet ceremony that symbolized the enduring nature of their bond. It seemed that Elizabeth had finally found the love and stability she had longed for. But fate, it seemed, had one final challenge in store for Elizabeth Montgomery. In 1995, while filming her final project, the television movie Deadline for Murder, Elizabeth began experiencing flu-like symptoms. She initially dismissed them, attributing them to the stress of work and the demanding schedule. But these seemingly minor ailments were, in fact, the first signs of a devastating illness. As her symptoms worsened, Elizabeth reluctantly sought medical attention. The diagnosis was shocking and heartbreaking: colon cancer. The disease had already progressed significantly, spreading to her liver. The prognosis was grim. Despite the devastating news, Elizabeth faced her illness with the same strength and determination that had defined her life. She refused to let cancer dictate her final days. She chose to forego aggressive treatment, opting instead to spend her remaining time at home with her loved ones. Just 6 weeks after her diagnosis, on May 18, 1995, Elizabeth Montgomery passed away peacefully at the age of 62. Her death was a profound loss for the entertainment world and for the countless fans who had been touched by her talent and her activism. But even in her passing, Elizabeth left behind a legacy of resilience, defiance, and a commitment to living life on her own terms. Her children and loved ones remember her as a woman who was driven by passion, whether in her work, her activism, or her complicated search for love.